So you want to start budgeting, but you find that you tend to actually get a weekly income, or maybe you just even get irregular income every single time. So you really want to understand, is there a difference between monthly and weekly budgeting? And if there is, what exactly is the difference and how do you actually make a weekly budget? Well, in this video, I'm actually going to be talking through how I would actually do a weekly budget if I was being paid weekly or if I had irregular income, and talk through why that might be a bit different compared to having a monthly budget. Hey Auntie V, it's Ronnie again. I've basically changed jobs and I'm really struggling to budget because I get paid weekly instead of monthly. Can you help me out? Of course, Auntie V is always here to help. Now for me, when I think about weekly versus monthly budgeting, the main thing is really going to be based on the amount of income you get per week compared to what you would get per month, because you will actually find that a lot of your expenses are probably very similar and are probably the same, but it's really the income that comes in that's a bit different. So that is really the part that's probably going to be a bit more agile, which you may need to adapt and be a bit more flexible compared to if you were just getting one paycheck every single month. Now if you do have a steady paycheck, it's just the fact that you get paid weekly, then it's a little bit similar to monthly in that at least you can really start to plan what you're budgeting and understand where you want your money to go. The main thing is if you actually do have irregular income, then it's a little bit difficult for you to actually plan your expenses because you have no idea what you're actually going to be paid within that week or within that month. So if you're in that camp, I would really be thinking about what's the lowest amount that you're probably likely to get. So even though sometimes you may be getting £600 a week or £500 a week, if you know that your lowest is usually about £400 a week, then I would really set your balance there, and then you can really start to be a bit more flexible when it comes to budgeting. The next thing I would be doing is actually outlining your essential bills. So these are your core expenses that you know that you always have to pay for. So that might include things like your rent, your utility bills, if you've got council tax, and then maybe if you've even got any debt repayments as well. So if you've got a car that you need to be paying off, or if you've got a credit card, those would probably be included in that essential bills category. Now when it comes to your essential bills, there are probably a couple of ways that you can do it, and it will depend on what you prefer. So really the first way could be that you decide that your first couple of weeks in terms of your weekly paychecks is really dedicated to paying off all your essential bills. So let's say in week 1 and week 2, all of your money is going to go towards your essential bills, and then that's it. So if your essential bills come to £1,000 and you get paid maybe £500 a week, those first 2 weeks will be covered by your essential bills, and then there we go. The other way that you could potentially do it is actually just add up all of your essential bills and then divide it by the number of weeks. So for example, if you're getting paid 5 times within that month, then you could decide to be putting away enough money to cover those bills. So let's say that your essential bills are going to come to about £1,000 for that month, and you're going to need to pay that at the end of the month. What you would be doing is you may divide that by the number of weeks that you get paid. So if it's 5 weeks, that means that you've got £200 that you will be setting aside every single week so that you can pay for those essential bills by the end of the month. Now in terms of the first option, where you're really just dedicating most of your money to your essential bills first, that could be good for you because you know that that's at least paid for and you don't need to worry, and that's probably going to be essential when it comes to having irregular income. However, it does mean that you might not have enough money to pay for other expenses. Maybe you just want to buy toiletries and things like that. So you're really going to have to think about how much you would like to allocate per week, or if you'd prefer to use the other option and just split it by the weeks of the month. And that option might be slightly better because then it maybe feels a little bit easier during the month. The only thing with that is you need to make sure that you don't overspend, because for example, if you only get paid £500 weekly and let's say your essential bills are £200, if you realize that you've actually spent £350, it means you're not going to have enough money to be able to pay for those expenses by the end of the month, unless you then start putting more money from the income that you get in your second week towards your essential bills. So really there's just pros and cons for both of them. You just need to figure out what's going to be a bit easier for you. Now if I was getting irregular income and let's say that that base amount is about £400 a week that I'm likely to get, and that's the lowest amount, really you want to make sure that your essential bills are taken care of first before you start thinking about your spending. So I would really be prioritizing that first, and then if you've got any more money left over, then of course that can go towards your spending. And then of course if it does get to a week where you actually have more money than your base amount, then that's great. It means that you can just put that towards your spending. But again, I would be prioritizing my essential bills first, followed by that when it comes to spending, you're probably going to want to prioritize things like food and probably toiletries and maybe transport, depending on whether you put that in your essential bills or not. But you'd want to prioritize those before, you know, eating out and entertainment, for example. Again, that would just mean that you need to be a bit more agile and flexible when it comes to your budgeting. So you're probably going to want to be checking your budget a bit more often compared to if you were budgeting monthly. So let's hop onto my laptop and I will just show you an example so that hopefully it gives you a bit more guidance when it comes to doing weekly budgeting. So what I've done is I've just made an example on one of my budgeting templates. So if you didn't know, I do actually have a weekly budgeting template as well as a monthly one. So if you are interested in getting getting this spreadsheet, I will link that in the description below for you. But what I thought would be good is let's just take an example and see how I would actually make a weekly budget. So with this, what we would be doing is, let's say that I was getting paid £400 a week, which is equivalent to probably about £2,000 a month. So of course I would write down my salary for the week. So in this case, what we're going to be saying is that Ronnie gets £400 every single week without fail. And so let's populate that into the 5 weeks. It might even be 4 weeks, really depending on how many days there are in the month. But let's say that Ronnie gets paid, I don't know, every Friday, and this month she's got paid every single week of about £400. So I would include the salary of about £400 for the week, so you can see that here. And then what I would be doing is, of course, I'd be looking down at the essential bills. So these are really going to be the bills that come up every single month that you already know that you're going to have to pay for. So things like rent, utilities, transport, your contract, if you've got any credit cards, if you've got a car loan. I also include giving in that as well, because I do think giving is still important. And maybe you've even got something like council tax as well. So what I would basically be doing, which you can see here, is I've actually divided the amount by the number of weeks. So for example, let's say that rent was about £600. Now, of course, if you're living in somewhere like London, that's probably not the case, but you know, you may be living somewhere in the Midlands, or you may have got a 2-bedroom flat and you might actually be sharing with someone else. So that's just as an example of what I've taken. So that £600, I would divide it by 5, which means that I would be putting away £120 every single week to go towards my rent. The same with utilities, transport, mobile contract, and all of that stuff. I have basically just divided it by the number of weeks, and that's exactly how much I would be putting away each week. So you know that out of that £400, you would be putting £296 away to pay for your bills, you know, whether it's at the end of the month or whenever you need to pay for it. And then the same thing will happen with my savings. So let's say Ronnie is trying to save up for a mini emergency fund. I would just split it by the number of weeks. So let's say that in this case, Ronnie wants to really try and save £250 in the month. Split that by 5 weeks, and that means that you've got £50 that you need to be saving every single week. So what you're essentially doing is you are treating each week separately, and it's as if you're going to be doing a monthly budget. The same thing if you were to do sinking funds and spending, I would just divide it by the 5. So in this case, she might not be saving for any sinking funds at the moment because she's trying to get a mini emergency fund so that she can pay off her debt, because you can see that she's got a credit card and she's also got a car loan that she's going to need to start overpaying. But apart from that, she's also got some spending. So let's say that she's spending about £20 a week on groceries. She puts that in there. Any toiletries, if it's about £25 that she usually spends in the month, divide that by 5 and you've got £5. The same with eating out, entertainment, Netflix, although Netflix isn't really that much. So you may either just want to split it by the weeks, or let's say for Netflix, you decide to just pay the whole thing in the first week. So it really just means that you don't have to put money away for the rest of the month. But again, that's something that's up to you. And then I've just got a miscellaneous that was left there for about £7. Now with this method and this template, it's really using the zero-based budget. So really it just means that you're giving every single penny, every pound a name and a job to do. And if you're liking this content so far, then feel free to give me a thumbs up, as it really does help to support the channel. And if you're not subscribed to my channel yet and you would like to know a bit more about money, careers and mindset, then feel free to below as well. Now if you're thinking about the first option that I mentioned, where you're really just trying to pay your essential bills first before you think about anything else, then this is something that you could also do. So in this example, I've used the same income. So let's say you're receiving £400 a week, and what I've done for the first week, Ronnie would just allocate most of her income to her rent. So in this case, she's going to pay £300 rent, and she's also going to pay for her groceries for the month. So she doesn't pay for anything else. She just puts £300 away for her rent, and then she's also got £100 groceries. So this is basically the same amount that she would have paid in the last example. So rather than just paying for the groceries every single week, she's just putting £100 straight towards her groceries for the first week. Then she might decide for the second week that's going to go towards her rent, but also her utilities. So because she's paying £600 a month for rent, she's got the other £300 that she needs to pay in that second week, but she also wants to start paying for her utilities. So she might put £100 towards her utilities. So you can see that she's not spending any more money for anything else. And then within the third week, she's got the other essential bills that she needs to pay for. So the rest of her utilities, she decides to just pay for all of her transport, her mobile contract, her credit card, some of her car loan. And the reason why it's some is because if she was to pay all of her car loan, that will take her over the amount that she actually gets in that week. So that will take her to £450 rather than £400. So the rest of that £50 will just go towards the next week, if that makes sense. But again, what she's basically doing is prioritizing all her essential bills first before she starts thinking about her other spending needs. So any discretionary spending is basically forgotten about. about until like the last week of the month. So this, I guess, would be really helpful if you really want to prioritize your essential bills and you feel like you're more likely to spend money and you just have that fear that you're going to spend all of your money instead of saving it or paying off your essential bills. Now you can customize it how you would like, so you may decide to put a bit more towards your essential bills, but you may also want to spend some money as well. So you may decide, actually, I'm going to put my toiletries in the first week. Again, it's really up to you. It's going to depend on your personal circumstances and also if you're likely to overspend. So for example, if you do realize that you actually need to pay for toiletries, but you've kind of already put more money towards your essential bills, that does mean that if you haven't planned for it, then you've technically overspent that week. So it means you've got less money to play with the next week. Now, if you did have a regular income, and let's say sometimes you get £600 a week, but then sometimes you get maybe £400 a week, I would probably be using a very similar method. I would really try to think, again, what's your baseline? So what's the lowest you're likely to receive that week? Put that as your baseline, and then if it gets to the week where you realize, oh, actually you've been paid a bit more, then obviously it means that you can slightly change your budget. So in this example, again, if £400 was the lowest I was receiving that week, that is exactly what I would be adding onto my budget. So even if there's some weeks that maybe I get £600, I'm not going to put that on my budget yet because I haven't actually been paid that. Until I actually know exactly what I'm getting that week, I'm going to put the lowest amount, because the worst thing you want to do is start budgeting for £600 for that week and you only get £400 or £500 that week. So I would definitely just do a similar process. So I would just include your income. Obviously, if it comes to the week and you have more money, then that's great. You can start to put that towards whatever you want, whether that's your savings or a bit of spending. But I would do your income, minimum amount that you're likely to get, then do all of your essential bills. So really that's going to be your priority. Allocate that money first, and then obviously your savings and investments, that's probably going to go next. Personally for me, because most of you guys will know that I think paying yourself first is probably one of the most important things you can do. Again, it's really going to be up to you, and it will also depend on your goals as well. But guys, regardless of weekly, irregular or monthly budgeting, make sure you're prioritizing your spending. Please do not prioritize eating out and entertainment first before you even think about paying your rent, okay? So you really want to take into consideration your essential bills, what you know you need to actually pay for, and then figure out what's exactly a discretionary cost. So what's something that you would like to have but you don't really need it. So if you did like this video, then please do give me a thumbs up if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments, do you tend to do monthly budgeting or do you do weekly? I do post every Tuesday and Friday, so if you would like to know more, then of course you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.